Welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation. With me, your host, Aaron James, the channel that brings you your team every single day. Well, look, we're going to talk transfer news because, look, it's a silly season. It's the off season. And yes, we have got two games this week, Birmingham City on Wednesday and Union Berlin on Saturday. But there is obviously transfer news still around as Rangers attempt to move players on to generate income to buy players. I mean, that's simple economics, isn't it? That seems where we are. We're going to talk a little bit about a couple of a possible arrival. Possible departure. A rejected departure. We're going to talk a little bit about what Danilo has been saying about Bin back playing. We're going to talk, obviously, with all the latest ahead of today's Champions League draw as well. That is upcoming. Well, if you're already watching this, you may have already know what the Champions League draw is. So let me know what you think of it. We're going to talk also about where Rangers are at this moment in time in terms of their starting 11 and where we're short still, which some of you may argue is a lot of places. Some of you may say, it's all gravy, man. It's all gravy. So let's start off with news about long-time Rangers vice-captain Connor Goldson. Now, look, let's get one thing clear. Let's get one thing straight from the outset. I don't hate Connor Goldson. I've never hated Connor Goldson. In fact, if you go back over a number of my videos, I've actually stuck up for him in the past against people who've been criticising him. But, look, I think we all reach that point, don't we, in life when, we know we need to move on. Things become stale. We keep making the same mistake over and over again, and things go wrong. That's just the way life is, and I think Connor has very much reached the end of his journey with Rangers. And we saw towards the end of last season, didn't we, that, he kind of, before the injury, kind of fallen out of favour a little bit with Philippe Clermont. I think, he was dropped, from games, and then he got injured. He was actually genuinely injured at the end of the season. It wasn't a made-up thing. So, Connor Goldson, he was linked with a move to Saudi. That seems to have kind of gone very quiet. It seems the Saudi window is now open. There's very little sort of news coming from Saudi in terms of them wanting to buy players. Birmingham City were linked with him at one point, and that kind of sort of fell away a little bit. And I think, the whole thing over his salary kind of clouded that. The fact that he was on 37 grand a week at Rangers, Birmingham's top earners on 20 grand, it's not really a viable option. I can't see him taking a 17, 18 grand pay cut to go and play in League One in England. So what's going on with Connor? I think, it's common consent is, he hasn't started particularly any of the preseason games. He's been a substitute. I think Philippe Clermont very sees him as the past. Clermont doesn't see Goldson as been someone, I think, who features this. Well, I think he features this season if he stays, but I don't think he features from the start. I think Clermont sees his central defenders as his starting central defenders as others. We saw, didn't we, on Saturday, with Suter and Davis starting. Be really interested to see who starts on Wednesday night against Birmingham. Now, according to reports, Goldson took a private jet out of Prestwick last night en route for Cyprus. No, he's not having a holiday. No, he's not going clubbing in Ayia Napa before anyone thinks he's going to Napa to large it up with the rest of the crew in Napa. Yeah, man. No, he's not doing that. According to reports going around, he is heading off to talk to Aris Limassol. Yes, the very same Aris Limassol who beat Rangers in Cyprus very humiliatingly. The same Aris Limassol that saw Todd Canwell hooked after half an hour. The very same Aris Limassol that were in our Europa League group last season. Yes, that one. Now, some people have cast doubt on Aris's ability to afford Goldson in terms of transfer fee and weekly wage. Well, let me just assuage that worry at this moment in time. Aris are a club that do have a fair amount of money due to their backers. So there's more than enough money there to pay Goldson his weekly wage and also to seal his transfer from Rangers. Now, also, apparently, according to Cypriot sports media, Aris are on the lookout for an experienced centre-half to come into their team to add a little bit of experience to their back four. And who more experienced than Connor Goldson? Now, Goldson has played over 300 games for Rangers, 309 to be precise, scoring 23 goals with 15 assists, 120 games for Shrewsbury, 42 for Brighton, 7 for Brighton's and 21s, and 4 at Cheltenham. A man who comes with a vast CV of experience. Now, I don't think the Cypriot League is particularly strong. You know, maybe that Goldson can have a rebirth out there in the Cypriot League. You know, he certainly has struggled in recent times in Scotland, hasn't he? You know, making the same mistakes a number of times, which have led to goals. You know, we've seen in pre-season as well some pretty poor performances from Connor. You know, look, if this is the end, if this is truly the end for Connor Goldson, then, you know, so be it. You know, I think we have to go through a change at this club. We have to go through a real change at this club. Now, there's talks, obviously, of James Tavernier exiting. We talked about on the podcast last night. You know, Besiktas interested. We talked about Trabzon been interested in Tav. And if it was the Rangers were to allow their captain and their vice captain to move on, two of the kind of biggest names at the club at this point in time, that would send out a huge signal about Rangers reorganising, revolutionising and changing going forward. And look, we know that we need to generate income. We know we need to sign players. We know we need to build this team, build this squad. And the only way to do it is by shifting out some of the veteran presence at this squad, in this squad. And that, obviously, with, you know, Goldson and Tav been probably two of the most saleable assets and two of the most experienced. You know, as well, I think there's a lot of fans that see Tav and Goldson as part of the problem here at the club, that see them as been a weak link, see them as been, you know, someone who's, you know, mental scarring against Celtic has really cost the team. If it is that we can, you know, get some money for Goldson, which looks to be about £1.5–2 million, add that to the 4 million rumoured for Tav, that would give us £5.5–6 million. That would give us some very interesting amounts of money to be able to spend on players if the board obviously allowed Clement to have that full amount of money. There is some concerns that money could be diverted partially to paying for the stadium. But certainly interesting news tonight that Connor Goldson appears to be actively seeking a move away from the club. Now, someone who just genuinely, I don't know what is going on with him, seems quite content to sit in the B team, pick up 22 grand a week and kind of just exist at Rangers, is Sam Lammers. Now, Sam Lammers went off to Holland last season and had a very good second half of the season with FC Utrecht. You know, was one of the top players in the Eredivisie. Was, you know, a top player for Utrecht when he was there, and, you know, really did impress. So much so that, you know, the talk was that rather than in the past, Rangers would lose money on him, that they'd actually make their money back on him, and he could even make a profit on Sam Lammers, given how well he played. And I think, you know, some people saying, well, let's get him back at Rangers, let's play him as a 9 at Rangers, and let's see what we've got. Kind of have lost sight of with Lammers, where he's always succeeded in the Eredivisie, but never outside the Eredivisie, struggling in the Bundesliga, struggling in Serie A. You know, he's definitely a player who needs to be at home playing in the Eredivisie. Now, 4 clubs apparently have shown an interest in Sam Lammers this summer. 20 Ashende, NEC Nijmegen, the very latest, FC Utrecht, and AZ Alkmaar. Now, all 4 of these clubs have now since pulled out of the running for Sam Lammers for a number of reasons. You know, 1, transfer fee, 2, being his wages. You know, a number of clubs have said that they can't afford his wages. You know, Lammers is under contract at Rangers until 2027. He's on a substantial wage at the club. I think it's about £22,000 a week, and he's unwilling to take a pay cut. Ashent Twente, who were very interested in him at one point, a Champions League team, you know, don't have a massive wage structure and will be unable to pay 22 grand a week to Lammers. Utrecht as well could afford the transfer fee, couldn't afford the wages. Nijmegen, again, could afford the transfer fee, couldn't afford the wages. So it looks like that deal that was given to him is holding him back from exiting the club. So what's the plan? What genuinely is the plan with Lammers? You know, what does he just sit in the B team until January or until the end of his contract on 22 grand a week and rake in the money? And, you know, where do we go from here in terms of this? You know, it seems that whilst the club are willing to deal, the club are willing to transfer him out, and even in some cases taking a loss on the player, given, you know, the kind of stupid own goal that Rangers have committed by doing what they've done with him, by sticking him in the B team and pretty much indicating they don't want him to clubs, meaning clubs will come in and low ball. But it seems that wage thing is really holding back this transfer. And the fact that Lammers won't take a pay cut, now, you can't blame him. You know, as much as we all want him to move on, as much as we've all seen his time in Glasgow as an utter disaster, you really can't expect someone to take a pay cut. You know, I wouldn't take a pay cut. You wouldn't take a pay cut. So, you know, where are we going with this? You know, could we be stuck with him? it does seem that way, unless one of the big Dutch teams were to come in, PSVs, the Feyenoords, the Ajaxes, who can pay those bigger wages, then realistically, we could actually be stuck with him. Serie A clubs are not looking at him because they know that the two clubs he's played for in Serie A, Atalanta and Sampdoria, he's not been great. Spanish clubs seems to be no interest. German clubs, no interest. So where are we going with this? It does appear that Lammers is stuck very much in a limbo situation. And, the time's going to come near the end of the window, if he's still here, where Rangers are going to have to make a decision. We can't have a player sat in the B team on 22 grand a week. That's just financial suicide and just absolutely ridiculous decision. So at that point, do you try and reintegrate him into the team? If you do, where do you play him? How do you use him? Or does that depend on who we bring in? It seems such a shambles at the moment, an absolute shambles from the club, and I think partly as well from Lammers, not obviously wanting to take a pay cut, which, like I said, you can't blame him for. It's just a situation that doesn't appear to get any better with the reading and the looking at it. So for me, it is a very confusing situation. You've got to, like I said, hope that Feyenoord follow up their interest, something like that, to obviously allow him to leave. But, I don't want to be stuck with Lammers. I certainly don't want him in the team next year. People saying, oh, well, he did well in Holland. Yes, but he's always done well in the Eredivisie. Right, let's move it along a little bit and talk a little bit about, obviously, Rangers finding out their fate today. If you're watching this video later in the day, you may find that Rangers have already found out their fate as regards the Champions League. So Champions League third qualifying round draw is today in Nyon in Switzerland, and no doubt it will last an awful long time because, let's face it, there's nothing UEFA like to do more than spin it out. And with the new format of the Champions League coming in, it gives them even more opportunity to really spin it out and tell a yarn. So, what do we know? Okay, so we know that Rangers will be among the senior teams entering the third qualifying rounds. That means that Rangers have to pass through 2 rounds, so 4 games before they can make it to the all-new group stage, which involves playing 4 home games, 4 away games. The top 8, I think it is, then progress, with 9 to 24 then playing off against each other. Now, we know that Celtic have already qualified for the Champions League group stage by the fortune of their league win last season. Yes, we handed that to them. So the draw is today. That's when the draw takes place. So we'll find out Rangers' opponents in that third qualifying round today. Champions League qualifying has been underway for already quite a period of time. So the draw will take place in Switzerland at 11 a.m. UK time. 11 a.m. UK time. That's when it will take place. Okay, that's 12 o'clock Swiss time, I think it is, but 11 o'clock our time. Okay, and we'll obviously try and bring you the draw here on the channel. There will be further details of the draw released pre that 11 a.m. Draw time at 7:30 a.m. Rangers and their opponents will also enter the playoff round draw, but that will not happen till next Monday, the 5th of August, when before Rangers even play the third qualifying round, they will find out who their playoff round opponents could be if they manage to progress. Obviously, all this is progressing towards a final on the 31st of May in Munich. Yes, Munich, Germany. So Rangers obviously know that they could face a number of very, very good teams in this Champions League draw. It's going to be tough. We know that. 6th and 7th for the first leg, 13th for the second. And this squad, as we know, is probably not good enough to progress to the Champions League at this stage. We know how important the Champions League is. We know that, at the end of the day, that getting into Champions League is very, very important from the financial standpoint. So who could they face? Who could Rangers face? So they're seeded. We know that. Okay. They'll be paired against one of the winners of the second qualifying round, which kicks off this coming Tuesday. So the second qualifying round is currently as such. Ludogorets v Dinamo Minsk, Apoel v Petro Cub, which is a fantastic name, Ferencvaros v New Saints, that's the Welsh team, PAOK v FK Borak Banja Luka, Bodo Glimt v FC RFS, Malmo versus Klasvik, Shamrock Rovers via Sparta Prague, who played in the Europa League last year, UE Santa Coloma versus Midtjylland, NK Seleji versus Slovan Bratislava, FK Panevs versus Jagiellonia Bielefstok, got some horrible names, Lincoln Red Imps v Karabag, Football Club FCSB versus Maccabi Tel Aviv, Lugano versus Fenerbahce, and Kiev versus Partizan. So there's some tricky teams in that draw, and I think teams that Rangers will want to avoid, no more so than Fenerbahce, who are now managed by Jose Mourinho, who does seem to have that technique for winning in Europe. So we'll bring the draw tomorrow. We'll talk about the draw. We'll talk about evaluating the draw. We'll think about, obviously where we're up to with the draw. But I think we can't underestimate, the impact that this could have on Rangers' season. Playing in the Champions League, the actual proper Champions League, can lead to a whole financial series of benefits. And I think there's a very real possibility that Rangers have a list A and a list B. A list A, if we qualify for the Champions League, sell players, this is who we buy. If we don't qualify for the Champions League, if we're stuck in the Europa League again for the season and we sell players, this is who we buy. I think there's a real possibility that the Champions League has a pull power, doesn't it? It has an attraction. It's a great way to get players to come to your club, because if you say, oh, look, we can play Champions League football, you could play Champions League football. It is a selling point. So for me today, we find out that obviously we will find out the opponents, but it doesn't take away from the fact that this Champions League that is upcoming is exceptionally important that we get to the group stage. It really genuinely is, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so post Manchester United, Brazilian striker Dionísio has been talking, and this is what he had to say to RTV. He said, I am buzzing every moment I am on the field. I just remember being a kid and I enjoy playing football. And sometimes I just don't even release that. I am just back. When you are on the field, everything is around you, the people screaming, and it's so beautiful to see. I am buzzing. I am such a happy place. I am really happy at Rangers as well. I love this place. So obviously Dionísio expressing his love for Rangers, expressing his love of actually being at the club. I think Dionísio, obviously, as we know, was unlucky last season, with the injuries that he sustained in terms of obviously that facial injury and then obviously the ACL injury, both coming from impact tackles from hammer throwers. So this is going to be a massive season for Dionísio. If Rangers don't sign a striker this summer, then I think, the pressure comes on Dionísio, Dessers, and obviously Hamza Igman. I think Dionísio is, out of those three, easily the top striker. You just look back across his career, look back across his conversion rate, all better than Cyril Dessers. I think when he was originally bought for 6 million, Dionísio was seen as the starting striker. He's done it at Holland. He's done it with Feyenoord. And I mean, I know that Scottish football is very different, but he's started to show elements of getting it and scoring goals in Scotland. We've got to hope that Dionísio has a big season. That if we don't go out and get a striker, that Dionísio really steps it up and really shows why we paid that money for him. Yes, I know in the global terms, 6 million is not a lot of money, but it's nice to see that he's in such a positive frame of mind, that he's very positive going forward. I think that is a huge, huge bonus. Well, guys, let me know what you think of the stories that we've covered in today's video. Thank you so much for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation, guys. Obviously, hit the sub, help us to get to 6K. On the way out, 2 things I always ask. 1, smash that like. And 2, remember always, we are the people.